How to tell what's going on. So here are the few properties we can take a look and see what each one does. So it's having a property called is loading, is pending. So this is going to be true while we fetch for the first time. And next is fetching. This is also true while a background refetching is happening, even if cache data is showing. And then is tail. So these little properties we will see into action when I show the project which we have written so far. So this is also going to be true when the cache data is considered stale. So always the stale is going to be default by 0 if we don't include them and specify how long the stale time should be. And next data updated at and is refetching. Like this it is going to return few property. It is not just going to return this, there is lot more. Let's take a look into those as well. So, what useQuery returns? When you call constant query is equal to useQuery hook, it's going to have two things, that is query key for caching the React book data and query function to fetch the data. So, this is so a simplified version of our example looks. So, React query returns a query result object, a bundle of information that describe the entire state of the query. So when this is being called or fetching a data, it's going to return a result of object. So they are telling we might contain a bundle of information. That object looks like this: data is loading, error. So these kind of things, as I told, data, error, is loading, fetching, is error, and in the previous slide we saw like is pending. So like this lot of property it is going to be written. So when I hover over here, it is telling all distracted elements are unused. So let's take a look about the distracted to have bit more understanding about this. Why do we do distracting? When you write constant data is loading error or some other property that is required, we are just pulling out the specific field we actually care about. So some field that I don't want all of the property, I want only this specific property. Now I am saying I want is loading and error. Some only take data, they ignore is loading and error, and they may handle it in different way. So instead of doing constant query is equal to use query and then calling if query dot is loading or query dot data, you can do this way. So that is that's the exact reason why we do distracting. It's purely JavaScript object distracting, nothing special from React query. It's just a syntax sugar to make it cleaner. What each property mean? Again, as I showed you in the previous slides, there I showed is loading, is fetching. So this is all about the same. Here I have shown you the specified what we are going to use in our example. So the actual data from your query function, true while initial fetching is in progress, true when a fetching is happening, contain error object if the query failed, is error true if there is an error, is success true if the query fetched successfully. Status a string version like loading, error, or success. Okay, now let's continue coding. As I mentioned earlier, I have already defined the shape of the data, that is the book type, which define what each book should look like name, title, price, image, etc. So now when I use query React books shape, it means the data written by this hook will follow the exact shape and array of book object. Next, we have query key. So I'm going to give query key name as React book cache data. So what this query key is the unique name for query. Here I have named it as React book cache data. This key is important because React Query use it to cache the fetch data. That means if you ever need to access the same data again later, we can simply refer to this query key instead of fetching it overall again, and we will see that in action later on. Then we have query function. queryFn, it means query function. Normally, this is where we would make the API call like this. I will be using static list for fetching, but let pause for a moment and check out the TanStack talk to see other way of handling data fetching. Because for example purpose and to make it easy to understand, static list works really well, but in real time we don't use static list sometimes. So let's take a look into the stocks. You will get more information about React Query. So as I told, this is where the fetching data from a backend or external API take place. But in our project, to keep things simple and easy to understand, for now I am using a static list. So let's start by writing it. React book list is to React book shape. I'm sorry. And now I am going to specify all the shape exactly same. ID is 1, title React book, price 100 and images React book. Similarly, I am going to define three more values in this list and I'll change this to ID 2, ID 3, title will be React query and this title will be React with TypeScript. RTC, even the image I wanted to change, React query. And returning it with a small delay just to stimulate an API call. Return, yep. Finally, still I see some error because these are not being used here. Is loading. So yeah. So I have written it with the help of IntelliSense here. It have autofill. So I don't want to make it more confused. So I just clicked a tab and it got autofill. So yeah, this is loading is going to show when it is going to fetch the data at that time, and if there is any error in fetching a data at that time, it is going to show error in your browser. Error, I mean this particular text is going to be displayed. and when fetching a data it is going to display loading dot 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 in your browser, and when this both doesn't happen it's going to finally return this particular cell. I'm going to save this, and I want my UI to be a bit more better, so I will just paste whatever I have in my Git repo. I'm going to just simply remove this and paste the one which I already have ready for the UI. I will save this. Here, if you see, we have imported useQuery, a TanStack React query. So, what this useQuery is doing is that it is fetching the data. So, now for example purpose, I have given a local data, but in place of this, we are going to call a fetch request. Either it can be get, put, post, patch, whatever call it is. We are going to make a API call here, and after making the API call with the query key, we are going to cache this data. Next year, if you see, React Query handle the client side management of asynchronous data. So you don't have to manually write repetitive code for fetching, caching, updating, or refetching the data. So what it means? Here I am making an API call. So once after making an API call, this query key will be having all the cache data, so that next time if I wanted to get some React book data, I don't want to make a API call. Just by using the query key I can make use of the data. So that's what the definition actually mean. I don't want to write this set of repetitive code again and again. Just by using the query key I can use the same data. Now let's look into some of its key features. As we discussed before, data fetching. Easily fetch data with hooks like useQuery and useMutation. Work with any async source like REST, GraphQL, Firebase, etc. Next, another key feature is caching. So this automatically cache the response and reuse them until invalidated. It means TanStack query will come with some of the properties like stale, refetch on interval, refetch on mount, refetch on window focus, optimistic updates. Update the UI instantly on user action and roll back if the server requests fail. Finally, the last key feature is automatic refetching. Refetch data at an interval on window focus or on network reconnect. That is, when, for example, we are in a different tab, we want to, when we come to the current tab, that is that using React query, it automatically refetch a fresh data on window focus. Suppose we are offline and connect back when we are online. So at that time, when network reconnects, it's going to automatically refetch. And refetch data at interval. It means again we can specify an interval like after 5 minutes, please refetch the data. So these are the properties it holds again. So DevTools ship with excellent debugging panel for monitoring queries and mutations. So now with all of this definition and key feature, we will see each example practically. Before working on all the key feature, let's set up the project by adding the necessary code to each required folders. So next I'm going to do the same for the cloud books. I'll just paste here. It's nothing but same. I have just renamed it as cloud book and imported to cloud book images, and again the UI is same as what it is shown in React book. So just the naming is being changed. I'll save this, and finally home page to render this both the components. So why I need home page here is that when I need to show the difference, how it is showing the cache data, how it is being fetched in the background and showing the updated data, and there are some property called stale, cache time, focus, refetch on window focus, a lot of things that we are going to see in action. But before that, let's set up the home page. I'm going to again copy the same set of code what I have in my Git repo, and I'm going to change these three things bit different. That is import React book page, import cloud book page. Yeah. So now I'm just going to return the same thing here. So I can explain you what I'm doing here actually. I'm creating a use state active section, set active section. So after this, what I'm doing is this: when I start running my project, initially it is going to show us welcome to React Query learning session. And here, yeah, I will remove this particular part. I have not created that. So here what I am doing is that I am showing two different bullets. One is React book and another is Cloud book. So when I click on React book, it is going to render all the React book in home page, and when I click Cloud book, it is going to render the Cloud book in home page. And now finally we need to create a app route. For this, I am going to import lazy and suspend. So you might get little bit of confusion. The topic is about React query, then why are these extra things coming up? So I wanted to give some more clear understanding so that when you try to develop a large project, or when you try to work on your own, you will have a practice of making a clean code. You will be having an understanding of what each extension means. Similarly, even though it is a simple project, I wanted to implement, make use of lazy and suspend import from React. So, what generally lazy means is that it doesn't load everything until we actually need it. When I say in a web term, loading something only when it is needed instead of loading everything at once. Like when a user visits the site, you don't download all the images, components, or pages right away, only what's currently visible or required. When the user scroll or navigate, you load more content as needed. So in short, I can say load something only when it is needed. So by doing so, we can keep our JavaScript bundle size smaller. That I can say it help in page loading speed. It optimizes the code. Okay. So next I will import other things which is required for routing. I'm sorry. Okay. So import routes routes from React Router DOM. So React Router DOM is not installed yet. I am going to install it. By the time it get installed, I'll try to write the rest of the code for routing. Constant home page lazy Yeah. Similarly, we'll go with constant React book page, constant cloud book page. We have imported all these three components. Next, I'm going to write a function called app around. And here I'm just going to return. I'm not going to write any specific UI for this fallback. We can write if required in the future. For now, to make it simple again, I'm going to write it like this. Saving it. Finally, the app.tsx. Actually, I can say this is the real home page, like what you're going to see in your browser when you run this application. npm run dev. So you can see here, this is what app.tsx is returning.